Hey there, friend. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio here in the Bible Bistro, your home for organic Bible study that's fresh and delicious. And this is a 5-minute a day, 5-day a week studying the Psalms verse by verse podcast. Come on in here. This is Daily Dose Radio, and we're going to study Psalm 9, verses 17 and 18 today. So if you have your Bible there, why don't you open it up, and we're going to look at those verses here in just a minute. We've had the Selah, so we've had time to pause and meditate, and the Higgion on top of that, with or without music, don't know. And so we had this long extended pause. Now we're coming back to the Psalm, and we've been thinking about the fact that God is known by His judgments. But what are the wicked known by? The wicked are known by the works of His hands. They're taken by the works of their hands. That's what we know about them. But we know that God executes His judgments. So, think about that, and then we come back to verse 17 and 18. If you have your Bible, why don't you open it up to verse 17 in Psalm 9. Let's look at those two verses, 17 and 18. The wicked shall be turned into hell, and all the nations that forget God. For the needy shall not always be forgotten. The expectation of the poor shall not perish forever. All right, that's verses 17 and 18. You'll notice that we come right back to our kind of theme here in the second half of the Psalm 9, which is to remember. Okay, up there in verse 12, we had it twice. The Lord remembers the bloody, and He doesn't forget the cries of the afflicted. Now we come back down here to 17 and 18, and it says, So the wicked are turned into Sheol, and all the nations who forget God. How does it say that in the King James? The wicked are turned into hell, and all the nations that forget God. Friends, it's a horrible thing to be forgotten, to forget God, rather. God doesn't forget, but sometimes nations and men forget God. And remember, it says up there in verse 12, He doesn't forget them. The bloody are not forgotten. Sometimes, though, the bloody forget God, but He's not forgotten them. And what happens? They're turned into hell. That is a consequence. Listen to the wisdom of Solomon. In Solomon's Proverbs, we have in chapter 8, we have these words, For whoso findeth me findeth life, and shall obtain favor of the Lord. But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me love death. Yeah, so there's a decision to be made, and it's an important decision. It's a decision whether or not to fear God and to seek Him and to seek His wisdom. Because wisdom says to us in Proverbs 8, everyone who hates me sins against his own soul and loves death. And it's what we have here in Psalm 9. The wicked, because they forget God, they're turned out into hell. And all those who forget God. And then verse 18, For not forever will the needy man be forgotten. So we have the wicked forgetting God. God remembers them. But also God doesn't forget the needy man. And that we had that up in verse 12 too, didn't we? He does not forget the cry of the afflicted. There in verse 12, the B part of that verse. And then here in 18, the A part, he says, it won't be forever that the needy man is forgotten. He's not going to be forgotten. The Lord remembers him, and He's going to do His work. The hope of the afflicted will not be destroyed. Yeah, so, we have the wicked man forgetting, and we have God remembering. He remembers the wicked and the bloody, and He also remembers the afflicted, the ones that trust in Him, the ones that cry out to Him, the ones that are depending on Him by faith. Those ones. He remembers, and He's going to act on their behalf, and it's going to be wonderful. And just like the psalmist, who said there in, verse 14, he says, In the gates of Zion, I will rejoice in your salvation. That's going to be all of the afflicted, not just the psalmist, but all of them. Okay, well, join me again tomorrow, and we're going to look at verses 19 and 20 and close out Psalm 9. So I hope you'll join me then here on Daily Dose Radio.